Good morning, Year 7. I hope you had a lovely week and you are ready to mark your 20 questions for this week. So this is the video for the questions set on the 8th of June and your sheets would say 6.3.2 in the corner. Okay, so we're going to start with this one. So we've got 500 times 39, okay? So we're going to do it the same way we have for the past few weeks. So it says, so we start with this number here and we do 9 times all these three numbers individually. So 9 times 0 is 0, 9 times 0 is 0, and 9 times 5 is 45. So we write it like that. That one was nice and easy. So now we're going to do this number, but we're in the tens column. So we're going to do a 0 to start with. So 3 times 0 is 0, 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 5 is 15, so we write it like that. So now all we have to do is add these two together. So 0 plus 0 is 0, 0 there as well, 5 plus 0 is 5, 5 plus 4 is 9, and then a 1 there. Okay, so our final answer there is 19,500. Okay, so we're going to use the same method for the next one. So this time we've got 579. And we're timesing that by 25, okay? So 5 times 9 is 45, but remember we write the 4 down here and the 5 here. 5 times 7 is 35, but we have to add the 4 here, so that brings us up to 39. And then 5 times 5 is 25, but we've got to add the 3, so that gets us to 28, okay? So the next one, we'll draw a little line under that. We're working with the number 2, but we're in the tens column, so we're going to write the 0. So 2 times 9 is 18, and we're going to write 18 like this. 2 times 7 is 14, but we've got to add the 1, so that makes us up to 15. And then 2 times 5 is 10, plus the 1 makes 11. Okay, so now we've got to add this number to this number. So 5 plus 0 is 5. 9 plus 8 is 17. 5 plus 8 is 13, plus 1 is 14. 1 plus 2 is 3, plus that one is 4, and then 1 plus 0 is just 1. So you should have 14,475 as your answer. Okay, so next up we're finding the highest common factor. Okay, so if you remember for these ones, we're going to list the factor pairs for each of these numbers. So we'll start with 45. So we've got 1 and 45. Now, 2 doesn't work, does it? Because it's an odd number. Okay, so let's try the next one. So that would be 3. Well, we can times 3 by 15 to get 45. So we've got 3 and 15. 4 again isn't going to fit because it's an odd number. So what about 5? Well, 5's definitely going to fit, isn't it? Because it ends in a 5 or a 0. So 5 times what equals 45? Well, it's 5 times 9. So that's another pair. And that's all the ones we get for 45. So let's move on to 55, okay? So we can start, as we always do, with 1 and 55. As I said, we can't do number 2, can we? Because it's not even. 3 doesn't go into it, nor does 4, but 5 does. So 5 times what is 55? Well, it's 5 times 11. Okay, and that puts actually an end to our factor pairs. So we can now look at our list and see what is the highest number that appears in both. Well, it's 5, isn't it? So 5 is the highest common factor of 45 and 55. Okay, so the next two numbers that we've got to find the highest common factor of are 27 and 72. So let's start with 27. Okay, so we've obviously got 1 and 27, haven't we? Now 2 doesn't go into it because it's an odd number, but 3 does, okay? So it is going to be 3 and 9. 4 doesn't, nor does 5, nor does 6, 7, 8, and then obviously we're back to 9. So that's all the factors of 27. So now we can move on to 72. So for 72, we have got, obviously we'll start with 1 and 72. Now this is an even number, so we can do 2 and something. So in this case we would do 2 and 36. 3 also goes into this, so if we divide 72 by 3, we're going to get 24. Does 4 go into it? Well, yep, 4 does. So we can write 4. And it is going to be 4 times 18. So we can have that one. 5 doesn't go into it because it ends in a 2. But 6 does. So it would be 6 times 12 as the factor pair there. And then we have got 7 doesn't, but 8 does, because 8 times 9 is 72. Okay, so lots more factors there for the number 72, but now we can look at both lists and we can see what the highest number is that appears in both of our lists. So in this case it's the number 9, so we can write 9 as our final answer there. Okay, so on to the next one. So we've got some adding fractions. So with this one, like last week, instead of timesing the bottom two numbers together to get a common denominator, we're going to see if we can see a relationship between the two numbers. So we've got 3 on the bottom of the first one and we've got 12 on the bottom of the second one. So how can we get from 3 to 12 using multiplication? Well, if we times 3 by 4, we're going to get to 12, aren't we? And as long as we do that to both the top and the bottom, we'll have both of them out of 12. So 4 times 3 is 12, so we can put that on the bottom, and 4 times 1 is 4. Then we can just add our 9/12ths, and we'll have our answer, because we just have to add the numerators. So 9 plus 4 is 13 over 12. So that's correct, but as we say, we always want to get rid of our top-heavy fraction. So we ask ourselves, how many of the bottom number fit into the top number? Well, I'm only going to fit 1/12 into 13, so I can write my 1. And then how many do I have after that? So if I take my 12 out of 13, I've got 1 left, okay? So the answer is 1 and 1/12. Okay, so on to the next one. So again, we're going to try and think about, how can we get our numbers to be the same? So I've got 3 over 9 on this one and taking away 1 over 3. Well, I can get 3 to become 9 by timesing it by 3, can't I? So as long as I do the same to the top and the bottom, we'll be okay. So we're going to leave 3/9 and we're going to take away, 3 times 3 is 9 and 3 times 1 is 3. So we've got 3 over 9, take away 3 over 9. So actually if I do 3 take away 3, that's 0, and if I do 9 take away 9, that's 0. So that's my answer, 0. Okay, on to the next one then. So it says round 3,358 to the nearest 1,000. So we're going to look in the thousands column, which is this one here. And that's a 3. Now, that's going to stay the same if the number in the hundreds column is a 4 or below. And in this case, it is. Okay, so that means I can leave my 3 and then I can fill it in to 1,000. So I get 3,000 as my answer. Okay, so on to the next one. It says round 9,022 to the nearest 10. So this time I'm going to look in my tens column, which is this one. So I've got a 2 here, okay? So I can write out these numbers because they're going to stay the same. But is this number going to stay the same? Well, if the number in the units column is 4 or below, then it's going to stay as a 2. And it is, okay? So I'm going to leave that as a 2, and then I'm going to fill it in, okay? So we should have 9,020. Okay, so number 9. So it says express 0.85 as a percentage. Now, percentages are out of 100. So if we're given a decimal like this one, all we have to do is times it by 100. And that just means we have to move the decimal place forward 2 times, okay? So if we've got 0.85, if I move it forward once, I'm going to get 8.5. And if I move it forward a second time, I'm going to get 85. Okay, so that means that's my answer, 85%. Number 10 then. So, just a random line there. So this says express 42% as a fraction in its lowest form. So when we've got a percentage, they're always out of 100. So we take this number, we take 42, and we put that as the numerator. And then on the bottom, we can just put 100, okay? And that makes it into a fraction. But this question wants the lowest form. So we need to simplify it. So first thing we can do is halve them both, can't we? So we'd get 21 over 50.